Why do the Pakistanis want the Taliban running Afghanistan? They want to be able to go back to that arrangement that they had in the 1990s, where Pakistan's own militant groups were based in and out of Afghanistan with the goal of targeting India.
The triumph of Taliban-Pakistan after 20 years of the war on terror, which President Biden thinks is finished, is going to provide inspiration to extremist, radical and terrorist groups, not just in the region, but all over.
Question that has Pakistan been giving any support to the Taliban? I think that is a historical fact and consistency that there has been some level of support, and I think they don't even deny that. It actually gives Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan strategic depth in a Taliban ruled Afghanistan against Pakistan.
This is the flag of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, a name that was given to the country in 1996 by the Taliban government. Ostentatiously, the white color symbolizes the purity of Taliban's faith and government, while the scripture is Shahada, which is an Islamic oath and the first of the 5 pillars of Islam found in the Quran. The Taliban intend to wipe out the national tricolor. That traces its roots to King Amanullah and replaces it with this white banner. While the removal of the Afghan flag has triggered violent protests in the country, the Taliban flag can be spotted in its neighboring country, Pakistan. Soon after the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan on the 15th of August, Taliban flags were raised in a women's madrasa in Islamabad. Children studying in the capital city's Jamia Hafsa seminary were seen singing the Salam Taliban song to celebrate the takeover. As the Taliban consolidate power in Kabul, Pakistan's hand in the victory is evident. A day after the fall of Kabul, the Prime Minister of Pakistan declared that the Taliban had broken the shackles of slavery.
जब आप ज़हनी गुलाम बनते हैं तो ये याद रखें असल गुलामी से ज़्यादा बुरी ज़हनी गुलामी है। ज़हनी गुलामी की ज़ंजीरें तोड़ना ज़्यादा मुश्किल होता है। जो अभी अफ़गानिस्तान में गुलामी की ज़ंजीरें तो तोड़ दी उन्होंने, लेकिन जो ज़हनी गुलामी की ज़ंजीरें वो नहीं टूटती। वो जो कपड़े पहनते हैं आपको वो पहनने पड़ते हैं, उनके सारे फैशन आपको अपनाने पड़ते हैं, क्योंकि आप समझते हैं वो बेहतर है आपसे। और कभी भी एक गुलाम बड़े काम नहीं कर सकता।
Interestingly, Imran Khan made this statement while speaking at the launch of the new school curriculum in Pakistan, which has been criticized for putting emphasis on religious teaching instead of modern sciences. Meanwhile, a leader of the ruling party, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, openly admitted the close ties of the nation's military with the Taliban. and added that the group will help the Imran Khan-led country to win Kashmir.
तालिबान हमें कहते हैं हम आपके साथ हैं और इंशाल्लाह वो आके हमारे साथ कश्मीर फतह करके देंगे.
It is no secret that the Pakistani military has long-standing ties to the Afghan Taliban. Afghanistan's anti-Taliban resistance leader, Amrullah Saleh, has squarely blamed Pakistan for helping the Taliban fool the international community by participating in Doha talks, while using that time to shore up military powers.
A lot of the Taliban leaders who have now come to Kabul, they have come from Pakistan. Pakistan's backing of the Taliban is not an exotic story, it's not new, we all know it.
There's little doubt that Pakistan will also be involved in the formation of a new government in Afghanistan. A major geopolitical power tussle is underway. As the Taliban takes over in the strategic, landlocked nation, is Pakistan aiming to control the regional game with its ally China? What does Pakistan stand to gain from the Taliban takeover? Who is bankrolling the Taliban operations and training its members? Will Afghanistan become a terror haven once again? How should India tackle the Afghan crisis? As the Taliban returns to power, we decode the Afghanistan-Pakistan nexus. After the 9/11 attacks, the US and its NATO allies were determined to eradicate terrorist camps from Afghanistan. The immediate objective at the time of the 2001 invasion was to destroy Al-Qaeda and its founder and 9/11 perpetrator, Osama bin Laden. The leadership of Al-Qaeda had great influence in Afghanistan and was supported by the Taliban regime during the 1990s. In 2011, Osama bin Laden was finally neutralized by the United States Navy SEALs. The world's most wanted man was found and killed not in Afghanistan but in Pakistan. This is the compound in the city of Abbottabad where Osama was hiding. In the aftermath of bin Laden's death, then US President Barack Obama said, and we quote, "We think that there had to be some sort of support network for bin Laden inside of Pakistan." Pakistan has long provided a safe haven for radical Islamist movements. And with the recent Taliban takeover, experts believe Al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups have become active in Afghanistan.
So it already is a terrorist safe haven because the Taliban are there. The Taliban have been there. It is already a safe haven for Al-Qaeda and Islamic State. It's not the case that they are not there. They are there. I do anticipate that the Islamic State, while it doesn't have ties to al-Baghdadi's Islamic State, I do anticipate Islamic State is going to become much more active as a center, if you will, for Taliban for resisting the Taliban.
With Taliban's blitzkrieg, Pakistan's long-alleged double game in Afghanistan has finally been exposed.
This is a plot by Pakistan. It has been consciously planned since 2001, after the Taliban was ousted. There has been a strategy. What is most surprising about this is that Pakistan has conducted this operation, a very sophisticated operation, actually the likes of which probably we have not seen in the annals of warfare. Over 20 years, without the world actually recognizing or realizing it. And in fact, one could actually argue that successive US presidents, from President Bush to President Trump, realized this but were not able to follow it because of the machinations of others, Pakistan included, but also other Anglo-Saxon powers. And, the strategy, in effect, is in terms of, not only did they continue to nourish and groom and equip and train the Taliban, when they took over in 1996, had not yet used terrorism. They came in as a kind of militant force. But here for 20 years, they have cultivated a terrorist industry by, brainwashing people in the madrasas with the help of jihadi outfits, by recruiting them, by training them, by having a massive logistical support for them. Let's say each terrorist act would require at least 20 to 30, if not 50 to 100 people behind one individual. So you can imagine the scale of the industry.
There was never any impediment to them maintaining the Taliban. There was never any impediment. The United States did not ever take drone attacks to take out Taliban leadership, with the exception of one, and that was in Balochistan, and that's because the Pakistanis wanted us to do that, right? There was never any impediment to the Pakistanis maintaining those safe havens. No one ever punished Pakistan for doing it, and thus they did it.
Let's look at the historical dynamics of the Afghanistan-Pakistan relationship. This is the Afghanistan-Pakistan fenced borderline, known as the Durand Line. The 2,670-kilometer border was originally established in 1893 as the international border between British India and the Emirate of Afghanistan. To this day, Afghanistan has never accepted this boundary. But it cuts through the Pashtun tribal areas, dividing the ethnic group on both sides of the border. While Pashtuns are the largest ethnic group in Afghanistan, the Punjabis are the largest ethnic group in Pakistan. The boundary has since been viewed with resentment by Pashtuns on both sides of the line, many of whom have been demanding a separate Pashtun nation. This claim is backed by the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan that has carried out some of the bloodiest terrorist attacks in Pakistan's history, including the 2014 bomb blast at a school in Peshawar. In 2015, 6 senior members of this terror outfit vowed allegiance to the Islamic State and its head, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. And in January 2015, ISIS announced the creation of the Khorasan province. This is the group that carried out the recent attack at the Kabul airport.
You have Pakistani Taliban, which are inspired by the Afghan Taliban. The movement started in December 2007, and they are known as Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. Their focus is on Pakistan. They have their ethnic, organizational, and geographical linkages with the Afghan Taliban. And then you have Afghan Taliban. Afghan Taliban are based in Afghanistan. They have their support base, some support base in Pakistan. Then at the local level, these are more decentralized forms of networks. You can call it a network of networks, smaller networks, connected to a bigger network. So they are like small factions, which are, led by a commander, And for different reasons, these people have joined Taliban, some for revenge reasons, other purely for power and money, that there are those who are ideologically driven for different reasons. So the main division is the hardliner versus the moderates.
And then there is the Haqqani network, which was listed by the US as a terror group in 2012. Pakistan's intelligence agency, the ISI, is regarded as being a patron of the Haqqani network, and it has close ties with Al-Qaeda. Reports suggest that the Taliban has placed security for the Afghan capital, Kabul, in the hands of senior members of this network.
And then you have, outfits like the Haqqani network, which is a tribe, and they have always maintained that autonomy within the Taliban. So it's more of an anomaly. The Haqqanis are more of an anomaly within the Taliban. So there are divisions along ethnic lines. There are divisions along those who are more moderate and those who are hardliners, and regional as well.
Ironically, while Pakistan has long treated the Afghan Taliban as friends, the group's ideological twin, Tehreek-e-Taliban, has carried out hundreds of attacks on Pakistani security forces and civilians. Soon after they seized power, Afghan Taliban released key TTP commanders from jails.
When the Pakistanis began really throwing their support in full measure at the Taliban to ensure this victory, the TTP, the Pakistani Taliban, also began to revivify, right? And the TTP, some of it's allied with the Afghan Taliban. Some of the commanders are still opposed to the Pakistani state. And so what the Pakistanis did sometime in like the mid-2000s, it had all along been using Jaish-e-Mohammed. It had really been trying to rebuild that organization because the Jaish had actually split sometime late 2001, early 2002. And they had become Jamaat al-Furqan, which had become part of the network of terrorists that became the Pakistani Taliban. So what the army was essentially saying to the TTP, you have three options. One, you go fight for your brethren in Afghanistan. We'll help you do that. Two, you join the Jaish-e-Mohammed and go join India. So both the Afghan Taliban as well as Jaish-e-Mohammed are like Garvapasi programs for wayward Taliban, Pakistani Taliban, that is. And if you continue to make a menace of yourself, then we're just going to kill you. And that's what they did, right? The situation on the ground in Pakistan, though, is a little bit different from when this began back in the mid-2000s, because the Pashtuns understood that they were basically being used as fodder to tell the Americans, look at all these terrorists we're killing, right? Pashtuns realized that this was being fought off their backs and that they were being blamed for all of these terrorist events when in fact it was the ISI that was creating terrorists and giving the impression that Pashtuns are terrorists. So much of the Pashtun Tahfuz movement has really been to push back on Pakistan's deep state. And, they've popularized the saying, wo jo dashat gardi hai, uske piche vardi hai, right? All this terrorism, what's really behind it is actually a uniform.
Pakistan's test would be, can they convince the Afghan Taliban to take action against Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan? Or what kind of sureties Afghan Taliban would give them vis-a-vis TTP, that they do not carry out attacks from Afghanistan in Pakistan. So those worries are there. So I think that is how the public opinion is. But what is more important, I would say, is look at the state's policy and stance on this. What is coming from the state highest public offices, whether it is the Foreign Office of Pakistan or from the Pakistani military leadership. I think that will articulate Pakistan's policy on Afghanistan.
The Great Game. This was the term used by Rudyard Kipling to denote the rivalry between the United Kingdom and Russia in Central Asia in the 19th century. But for the last many decades, Pakistan has been playing a double game in Afghanistan.
Successive Afghan presidents, President Karzai used to say, why is the United States fighting this war in Afghanistan? The source of the war is in Pakistan. And again, if you see Bush, President Obama, and President Trump, they all realized and identified that the source of the problem was in Pakistan. President Obama said that the theater of the war is in Afghanistan, but the locus of the war in Pakistan, and therefore he constituted the mandate of the special envoy for AFPAC. And President Trump positively named Pakistan as the source of the problem in his 2017 August South Asia strategy. And yet, with the help of members of the international community, the United States was confused about this, was made to be confused about this by dragging in India, by dragging in Kashmir, by dragging in all kinds of other people. So the clarity was lost. So I'm still surprised that a country like the United States could not be aware of this deep military, psychological and information war strategy by Pakistan and simply not know about it.
And that brings us to our next question. How will it affect India? And what should be India's strategy in dealing with the Taliban?
The last time this happened, it was in the 1990s after the Soviet pullout. I think at that time we were much less well prepared. Today, in many ways, we have a counterterrorism grid in Kashmir that is very strong. And I don't think it is the Taliban's principal interest to actually interfere in Kashmir. But what will actually happen is that Pakistan will use those many other Pakistan-based outfits in order to, make a push for Kashmir. Though they will meet the same resistance that they have been meeting for the time. We should be very careful. This is exactly Pakistan's game. And we should be very careful of not falling into it.
Afghanistan is at a crossroads. There is a challenge, but there is also an opportunity for regional countries to start a new chapter. India engaged with the Taliban in Doha. I believe that was the right start. India should keep engaging, should engage the Taliban vis-a-vis with whatever the Indian concerns are. India should engage with Pakistan on Afghanistan as well.
The Afghan Taliban are violently anti-Shiite. The Hazara community, a majority Shiite Muslim group, has suffered some of Afghanistan's most violent assaults. Recently, the Taliban blew up the statue of a Shiite militia leader who had fought against them during Afghanistan's civil war in the 1990s. With the Taliban back in power, a Pandora's box of sectarian conflicts has been opened, and it will engulf the entire region. As the humanitarian situation in Afghanistan deteriorates further, ordinary Afghans will continue to bear the brunt of US betrayal and Pakistan-backed proliferation of terror.
As you know, you have strong Islamist outfits in Southeast Asia as well. So a kind of radicalization of the average Muslim who feels a certain sense of pride in the defeat of a superpower. But we must be very careful that we do not look at this from a kind of, prism, a communal prism or an Islamic prism. Because the Afghanistan that we are talking about, the young Afghanistan that has grown up, is a much more liberal, much more moderate. Actually, Afghans have nothing to do with this kind of Wahhabi extremism that Pakistan has promoted in Afghanistan. But the tragedy of this is that in all this, the people of Afghanistan are purely collateral.